Hey guys, my name is Timeo, and today's challenge, a lot of you wanted me to partake in the triple shotgun juggle challenge. The way it works is pretty simple. I have to use 3 shotguns in my loadout. I decided to go with my primary being the Spaz 12 with the full choke. My secondary, of course, is going to have to be the shorty shotgun. And then the third slot, what you guys wanted me to use, was the XM25 dart variant. If you're not aware, the airburst isn't the only thing that you can use the XM25 with. There is a shotgun variant, and it's actually surprisingly kind of good. And so every single time I get a kill, I then have to switch on over to the next one in the line. So if I get a kill with the Spaz 12, I have to switch on over to my pistol, and then rinse and repeat until I'm back to the very beginning. I'm getting a kill with my primary once again. This honestly has to be one of the most enjoyable challenges that you guys have recommended in quite some time. There is something deeply gratifying and satisfying about just swapping between every single gun and going on this insane kill streak without ever having to reload. Sure, you have to reload every once in a while because you only have 3 rounds with your shorty shotgun, but just swapping between them and killing enemy after enemy as they round the corner with a different weapon, for some crazy reason, it is incredibly gratifying. One thing I have noticed about shotguns, though, in the last couple of weeks, or basically since the most recent update, is that there just isn't much of a reason to use anything other than the buckshot with full choke, mainly just the buckshot. I've attempted to use the slug rounds and the dart version for these guns, but I find more and more that they just aren't nearly as powerful or as reliable as buckshot. Slug rounds was great because you had the potential of one-shotting someone at a distance, but now because buckshot basically has that same killing potential at long range, but doesn't have all of the weaknesses that the slug round has. Slug round, of course, you have to really line it up. You have to compensate for that travel speed, you have to compensate for the slug to fly through the air, but with the buckshot, you got to point and click at the enemy, even though that they're 20 to 30 meters away. You put 1 or 2 rounds into them and they're gonna drop. Same was true for the slug rounds right now. Like, there just isn't a whole lot of reason to use that version for pretty much all of the shotguns right now. Same is true for the dart right now. Like, the dart before the patch, it was a little bit better at taking people out at a medium distance. It was a little bit better than the buckshot, but right now, as soon as you slap on the full choke, the buckshot just seems better in basically every single circumstance. They could be up close, a medium distance, and while of course you're not going to want to try to snipe someone at long range, even at those extreme distances for a shotgun, the buckshot reigns supreme. And while I am by no means advocating that we nerf it to the point where it's in line with the other 2 ammo types, if they did that, we would be back at square one. We would be back to the place that we were before the updates, but I'll be interested to see how DICE approaches balancing these things out in a future update. Who knows? Maybe they think it's in a sweet spot right now. Maybe they realize that a vast majority of the Battlefield community is using buckshot over all of the other ammo types, but they could be okay with that. Yeah, it reduces the amount of customization that's available when you are using the shotguns, but maybe they just like the simple fact that shotguns are in a nice place, they're actually viable, and so they may have this same balance until the end of time or the end of Battlefield 4. It's entirely possible. One thing that I really enjoyed about this challenge, though, was that it has opened my eyes once again to the XM25 dart. If you have not used this, I highly recommend that you give it a try. It doesn't seem like it would be all that impressive. You would assume that if you're going to use the XM25, you are going to use the airburst variant, because that's easily one of the most annoying gadgets on the battlefield. But try out the dart version, because this thing absolutely destroys people up close. If you're running around with a slow firing light machine gun, like let's say the LSAT, which is awesome at a distance, you can complement that by running the dart variant, so that when you do get in a conflict with someone who's up close, where you would be at a severe disadvantage with that slower RPM light machine gun, you can all of a sudden turn the tables on them by slapping the face with a shotgun blast. It's glorious. This thing is kind of a hidden gem. And while I know a lot of people are going to opt to use C4 or the airburst variant because it makes sense on larger maps, but if you're playing Team Deathmatch or you're playing on a close quarter map like Metro and Lockers, this thing is absolutely disgusting. The one thing about this challenge, though, that I found the most difficult really has to be the shorty shotgun. I don't know what it is about this thing, but I cannot, for the life of me, wrap my head around it. I know that a lot of people like to use this thing as their primary secondary weapon of choice. I know that sounds ridiculous, but a lot of recon players or a lot of people really get a lot of use out of this thing, but for the life of me, I can't figure out how to make this thing more effective. I did slap on the full choke. That seemed to help me out significantly when I slapped on the red dot sight. If you're not aware, if you don't have an RDS on this thing, the MIDI RDS, you can't aim down sight. And of course, if you can't aim down sight, then I would not recommend using the full choke because you're not going to get the full benefit. But if you have that combo, it seems to make it at least somewhat more effective. One thing I did discover though, and something that I really tried to slam into my brain, was to make sure that I didn't go through all 3 rounds when I was using the secondary weapon. If you do go through all 3, which is okay because hopefully you're alive, if you have to panic and you have to use all 3 rounds, that's acceptable, but if you do, be prepared for a ridiculously long reload. I cannot tell you how many times I had my pants down because I was trying to go through that reload animation. The first one takes forever. The second and third time you put a round into the weapon, it doesn't take nearly as long, but that first one is ridiculous. And so I tried to train myself to make sure that if I got into a conflict with someone, I only used 2 rounds, or if I was able to kill someone, immediately go through that reload and then switch on over to my XM25 dart. That seemed like the best way to handle it. But overall, I had an absolute blast with this challenge. If you want to have some fun in Battlefield, you want to mix it up and have a different playstyle, I recommend that you give this a whirl. Sure, it's not the most ridiculous challenge that I've ever done because, let's be honest, like the shotguns in this game are really good right now, but because I did have to switch on over to the shorty, which is going to be a huge hindrance on your killing potential, and while the XM25 dart is quite nice, it of course is nowhere near as good as the primary shotguns. But just overall, you feel like a badass. It is really gratifying to constantly juggle between all 3 shotguns, and overall, I just recommend that you give this a whirl. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's challenge. I hope you enjoyed. As always, if you have a loadout that you would like me to try next, let me know down below. This is a video series that is based off of your recommendations, and so if there is a gadget that you would like me to use exclusively or a weapon with a terrible combination of attachments, let me know down below. But yeah, guys, until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.